Our speaker today should be familiar to all of us. He's usually one of the biggest men in here. Daniel may have him beat. But I've known Chris since he came into this world, and I'm anxious to hear what he's going to have to say about what is sacred.
Well, thanks, Bill, and thanks to UU for once again allowing me the opportunity to talk to you today. And first, namaste to everyone. Today, I want to talk about a simple question that is not simple. What is sacred? All right, so first of all, the caveat, humanity has been trying to define this forever. So it would take forever to talk about this subject. It's just huge. All right, so what we're going to do today is just kind of boil down the question. And for what is sacred? What does a word mean? What does it mean to us? What does it mean in examples in our society? Okay, so what is sacred? Now, I know that we individually come up with our own definition, and we might even have very similar answers to the question. But it's a question I found very interesting in all my studies of cultures and religions. As you may know, I'm a member of the Rosicrucian Order, and we study all religions, cultures, from a humanist perspective to try to glean the commonalities out of them. And there are so many very diverse answers to this question. So first, let's just start with the standard dictionary definition. We'll look to our friends at Merriam-Webster for this one. They provide the following. Definition 1, dedicated or set apart for the service or worship of a deity. All right, something sacred for a religion. And B, devoted exclusively to one service or use. And for an example, a fund that is sacred to charity. Definition 2, worthy of religious veneration, something that is holy. Or something that is entitled to reverence and respect. That one I kind of like. Of or relating to religion not secular or profane, as in sacred music. One archaic definition that kind of surprised me for a sacred was accursed. That one kind of was a twist. I wasn't really expecting to see that. Then we have unassailable and inviolable, and then highly valued and important, a sacred responsibility. And that's the one I kind of lean on more than anything, highly valued and important. Now, let's just take a look at some examples in religion. We all know in Christianity, the Bible is a sacred text of Christianity and is considered to be inspired by God. It's made of two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. Old Testament includes part of the Jewish Torah, while the New Testament describes the life and teachings of Jesus and the early church. Within Christianity, there are sacred spaces. Christian churches include many sacred spaces like the altar, the pulpit, lectern, the loft, the baptismal font. Also in Christianity, we have a lot of relics. Relics are objects that are usually part of a saint's body or clothing and are often placed on the altar during Mass. Statues, there are statues that are considered sacred. In churches, they're meant to remind us of the saints that are praying for us in heaven. And in the Catholic Church, we have the Stations of the Cross. Those are considered sacred. In Judaism, we have the Torah, the first 5 books of the Jewish Bible, or the Tanakh, which are considered the holiest part of the Jewish canon. The Torah includes the 10 Commandments and other laws for Jewish people to follow. The Tanakh itself, the Jewish Bible, is made up of 3 parts: the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. The Tanakh is considered the Jewish canon, and its final shape was established between the Babylonian exile and the first century. Jerusalem itself, the city, is considered a sacred space by several religions. The Temple Mount itself, a hilltop compound that is considered the holiest site in Judaism, is also considered a sacred site in Islam and in Christianity. The synagogues are considered sacred to the Jewish people. Centers for Jewish life, they include the Holy Ark, a Holy Ark with the Torah scrolls, a Star of David, and an eternal light. The Torah scroll itself is considered sacred, the most important ceremonial object in Judaism, which retells the history of the Jewish people. And in Islam, we have the Quran, the central religious text of Islam, which Muslims believe is the Word of God, revealed to the Prophet Muhammad by the angel Gabriel over a 23-year period. The Quran is considered the final revealed scripture, and it's written in Arabic. In Islam, we have the Sunnah, which is a record of the Prophet Muhammad's words and deeds, which are used to help interpret the Quran. This is also considered sacred. We have the Kaaba, a black cube-shaped structure inside the Great Mosque of Mecca, which is the most holy place in Islam. Mecca itself is considered sacred. Then in Islam, we also have the 5 pillars. These are the obligatory acts of worship in Islam, which include the Islamic oath and creed, daily prayers, almsgiving, fasting during Ramadan, and a pilgrimage to Mecca. And in Islam, there are several other holy books that are considered sacred. In Hinduism, they consider all life to be sacred. Hindus believe that souls can be reincarnated into any form of life, so all life is considered sacred. In Hinduism, cows are considered sacred. Cows are sacred to Hindus and are considered a symbol of wealth, strength, and abundance. They are associated with several deities, including Krishna, the cowherd god, and Shiva, who rides a bull. In Hinduism, we also have the Ramayana, we have the Mahabharata, and the Upanishads, which are all considered sacred texts. That they are typically written in a poem form, but they tell basically the readers the difference between right and wrong. And the Upanishads, for example, are primarily concerned with knowledge and wisdom. Then we have the Varanasi, which this city is a pilgrimage spot for Hindus who believe that dying there will lead to salvation and freedom from the cycle of birth and rebirth. So we have a city that's considered sacred. We also have an ancient town called Ayodhya, if I can say it right. This ancient town is one of the 7 sacred cities of the Hindus. It is associated with the rebirth of Rama and the ruler of his father Dasharatha, which is told in the Ramayana. Now, in Buddhism, we have sacred texts. The Tripitaka, or 3 baskets, is a collection of sacred texts that includes the Vinaya Pitaka, the Sutta Pitaka, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka. You got to say it real slow or you'll hurt yourself. The Sutta Pitaka contains the Buddha's teachings, including the Dhammapada, which is the Buddha's exposition on the laws. In Buddhism, we also have sacred places. Buddhists make pilgrimage to places associated with Buddha's life, such as his birthplace in Lumbini, the place of his enlightenment in Bodh Gaya, and the place of his death in Kushinara. We also have sacred symbols in Buddhism. Almost all religions have sacred symbols. We have the Dharma wheel, the Bodhi tree, the lotus flower, the stupa, the Tiratna, the Vajra seat, and the Buddha footprint are some of those most common Buddhist symbols. In Buddhism, we also have the Dharma. The Buddhist teachings are known as the Dharma, and Buddhists believe that practicing meditation and following the Dharma can help people free themselves from suffering. Buddhists also believe in reincarnation, that the soul is sacred and that it will move from death to rebirth. Buddhists believe that after death, beings are reborn into a new form, which could be a human, animal, deity, or something else. Buddhists also believe in karma. Buddhists believe that positive thoughts and actions lead to good karma, which may result in rebirth into a higher form, while negative actions can lead to bad karma, which may result in rebirth into a lower form. Well, these are examples, and we could spend the rest of our lives looking at examples of what religions and cultures have considered sacred. So I figured while we're talking about the subject, I might as well just tell you what I feel is sacred. Everyone gets to define this for themselves. But for me, studying in the order and studying all the religions and everything and trying to glean the best out of all of them, I've come to an understanding of what I feel is sacred. There are three things that are sacred, and this is mentioned in the Rosicrucian teachings: light, life, and love. Okay, first, we'll take each one of those and just talk about it. On the surface, the terms themselves kind of define themselves for you, but we can talk about them individually. Light, of course, is a form of energy. Our light within ourselves is the energy that we put into the world. The Unitarians themselves, as we have the chalice lighting and the light of the lamp that we have in our symbol, the light of our own spirit that we bring to the world and to our friends and family. The various religions of the world also speak of light, but typically in a more focused way that supports the religious point of view of spiritual reality. Each religion has their own belief system of what spiritual reality is, typically referred to in some ways as the divine light. For example, in Islam, we have the term an-nur, meaning light, as found in the verse of light, which begins, "God is the light of the heavens and earth." In Christianity, we have many references to the inner light, or light of God. Quakers in particular have many related phrases like inward light, light of God, light of Christ, Christ within, that of God, Spirit of God, and so forth. Hindus have the jyoti, or jyot, which is a holy flame that is lit with cotton wicks and ghee or sometimes mustard oil. It is the prayer ritual of devotional worship performed by Hindus in offerings to the deities. It is also a representation of the divine light and a form of the Hindu goddess Durga Shakti. In Rabbinic Judaism and the Kabbalah, we have the Or Ein Sof, which means the infinite light, the divine creative flow of energy from God that is manifest in man. In Buddhism and Hinduism, we have the Prakasha, roughly translated to mean luminosity, light, shining forth, manifestation. And also in Christianity, we have the Tabor light, which is the uncreated light revealed to the apostles present during the transfiguration of Jesus. And of course, like I mentioned, our examples here in UU. But from what I've learned, the light that we can bring into the world is the energy that we put forth into it, the energy we share with everyone else. Even when you pass a stranger in the street and you give them a smile, that is your light. That's your energy you're sharing. And personally, it's one of my favorites. I love to share my light. Second, we have life. I think most of us would agree that life should be considered sacred. And not just our human lives, but all life on planet Earth. And again, major religions also speak of life, Christians believe that life is sacred and should be preserved because it is a gift from God. They also believe that the teachings of Jesus and his actions, such as the parable of the Good Samaritan, show that all life has value. Catholic Church teaches us that all human life is sacred and that everyone has a right to life. In Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, they believe that all life should be respected because the body is just an outer shell for the spirit within. In the Jewish faith, life and breath are essentially the same thing and are both sacred. They believe life begins when you take your first breath. Now, from what I've gathered from my studies, is that most religions and cultures consider life to be sacred in some form. But sometimes in history, the representatives of those religions have also demonstrated a great disrespect for life. And I'm sure all of us could look back to history and see those examples. So for me, all life is sacred. And that includes the little bugs on the ground and everything, the trees, everything. All life is sacred. And now for the third, and also my favorite of the three, love. Love, of course, we all know our own definition of love. We've heard the term forever, and we all have experienced it in some form or fashion. It is a feeling, but it's also an intention. How do we spend our energy in the world? Do we spend our energy, our light, with love as our intention? How do we treat life and live our own? How do we treat others? Most Christians believe that the greatest commandment is, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind and with all strength." This is the first commandment. In addition, there is the second, "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." Jesus referred to these as the two greatest commandments. One of my favorite Bible references is 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 to 7, and I'll read you the NIV version. "Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always preserves." It's definitely my favorite. In Islam, in the Sahih Muslim Hadith, the Prophet Muhammad is reported to have said, "You will not enter paradise until you believe, and you will not believe until you love to other Muslims what you love to yourself." Also in Islam, according to the Mahdiyah, we should have love for all of the creatures of God. In Judaism, we have the term ahava, which represents the interpersonal love of family and love of God. In the Indic religion, namely Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism, love is considered sacrament, and they all express love as a positive and powerful tool in their arsenal of virtues. And in the polytheistic and pagan religions, there are a plethora of gods and goddesses responsible for or representing love in its many aspects. So clearly, love is considered important and sacred amongst many cultures and religions. Now for me, that is my trilogy, my holy trinity, if you will. Light, life, and love. Now, through all my studies and all the things that I've read and seen and all the different religions telling me this is sacred and that's sacred and this is sacred and everything, this place is sacred, I can't really prove to myself that there is in fact some supernatural force that makes a certain thing or a certain words or a certain book or a certain thing sacred. But in my experiences in life, I have been able to prove to myself that light is sacred, life is sacred, and love is sacred. These three things, to me, are what is sacred. And I thank you for your time. Now, we have time for any questions or anybody? Maria? Yes, we have a microphone here for you.
Since I am here, I agree with life and love and light being sacred, but there are some forms of life that are hard to love. Mosquitoes, for example. I always joke that they love Mexican food because they love me. They eat each other. And it is very hard for me to love them. When I have a chance, I do kill them, I'm sorry. Other things that I really, really don't love, it's intestinal worms for humans or our pets. I just hate them. I'm sorry, I cannot love intestinal worms. Yeah.
That's okay.
Thanks, Chris. That was great.
No problem.
I do like the light, love, and life because those aren't like man-made concepts.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everything else that you were talking about, Quran, Bible, all those are man-made concepts, structures, man-made. So, and the word sacred is also a man-made term. So,
very true.
Thank you. Light,
Yes.
love, and yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Steve.
When I was in my teenage years, I figured exactly, but I became a born-again Christian, and I was from a family that had no religion. And they all thought I was wacko as heck for quite a while. I had a very good friend who was a Catholic, and he's still a very good friend. And I asked him one time, how is it that you put up with me when I was so evangelical? He said, I gave you 2 years. If you didn't make it in 2 years, you weren't going to make it. If all you do is read the Bible, and if you take that as absolutely the way things are supposed to be, I can probably qualify as going to hell. But I don't believe it. I believe in this group right here, right now, that we question. And I like what you said very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. No, for me as well, growing up, going to church at Bethel Presbyterian, growing up as a kid, and having the rules, given to me on how life should be and what should be considered sacred. Then I also have Catholic family members on my mom's side. I have Presbyterian on my stepdad's side, and then Methodist on my biological father's side. And then I married a Southern Baptist, so I had no clue what was going on. Everybody was coming at me with all kinds of rules, and no, it didn't work. So I really just dove in deep and started studying all religions and all cultures that I could get my hands on. And I probably mentioned before once, the first big book that I got to look at was Oxford's Dictionary or Encyclopedia of World Religions. Oh boy. Over 1,500 religions listed in that book. And I started flipping through and I was like, you know, every one of these religions, they believe that they've got it right, that they've come up with what reality is. They truly believe it. I'm like, okay, they can't all be necessarily right, but I didn't want to just say, you're wrong, right? I wanted to find out what was right about what they believed. What could I glean from them? What could I learn from each culture and religion that I could put into, boil it down to the fundamentals of what would work for me, right? And that's where I came to. Light, life, and love. And I have not found anything yet to disprove it. So that's where I'm at.
I think there is a